Hi, it's Kirby Sommers, and I am finally getting the hang of this YouTube stuff. So I thought that what I would do today is read from Bonnie's Clyde, the true story of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. It's one of my Epstein series books. And to set this up, it's about Robert Maxwell, who's Ghislaine's father and a proven spy. He fell off his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, and was found naked and floating in the sea. Ghislaine never believed that he was the victim of an accident or that he suddenly had a heart attack and fell over. She believed that he had been murdered. And frankly, I believe that too. Okay. This is from my book, Bonnie's Clyde. On April 1st, 1954, a 30-year-old man with an almost olive complexion, slightly receding black hair, 6'1", weighing approximately 215 pounds, wearing a dark blue suit with a light blue shirt and sporting a black Homburg hat with black shoes, arrived at Idlewood Airport in New York City and made his way to the Plaza Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. The staff whispered amongst each other as they knew him from earlier trips. They braced for his 2-day stay, as those who had dealings with him disliked him intensely for his arrogance. Perhaps this is why they were so accommodating when they were recruited by one of J. Edgar Hoover's men at the FBI to supply details of the imposing dark-haired man with the olive complexion. The FBI had been watching Robert Maxwell's every move, as he was considered to be a person of interest and of concern for national security. J. Edgar Hoover had amassed everything there was to know about him. He had been born on June 10, 1923, in Czechoslovakia, served in the British Army during World War II, became a naturalized British subject, and was issued British passport number 507441 in London on August 12, 1954. By the 1950s, Hoover had built an enormous surveillance and information gathering system, which included the ability to sexually blackmail every politician and person of importance in the United States. When Robert Maxwell arrived at Idlewood earlier in the day, he had been questioned by one of the inspectors. In a composed but well-rehearsed flurry, he answered the questions in a deep voice, with a clipped British accent, typical of the British upper class. Yes, my first name is Ian, and England has been my residence since birth. The inspector would take note again that Maxwell was traveling under British passport number 507441 and saw his occupation jotted down as copy director for a company known as Simpkin Marshall, with an address at Baker Street, London, England. Maxwell had many aliases and changed what he said to people depending on his mood or need. His birth name was Jan Ludwig Hoke, but he used Ludwig Hoke, Captain Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, Ian Robert Maxwell, Wallace Chesterin, and Ian Robert Maxwell interchangeably. After scribbling on his notepad, the inspector handed the passport back to Maxwell and watched as the large man disappeared into the crowd. He then made a quick call to Washington and supplied the details of their exchange to the FBI agent, as he had been instructed. J. Edgar Hoover knew all about surveillance. He had been caught on video by members of La Cosa Nostra, wearing a flouncy miniskirt and taking part in an orgy with minor boys at the same hotel, in addition to his paid informant at the plaza. Hoover went one step further, installing 2 agents in a room adjacent to Maxwell's. He wanted to know every detail: who Maxwell telephoned, what was said, where he went, who dropped by for a visit, who he had sex with, and what type of sex was had. Hoover took pride in his attention to detail, and if that failed, he would achieve his desired result through deceit or lying. This is the trait that helped him rise through the ranks. at the State Department where the top men had as much disregard for the niceties of constitutional law as he did. Okay, so what you know about J. Edgar Hoover is that he was as ruthless as Robert Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, and apparently as Ghislaine Maxwell. But what's interesting and what I discovered as I researched for this book and for my other books on Epstein and Maxwell is that Hoover spent a lot of time, money, and resources investigating Robert Maxwell. And he didn't investigate him just in the United States. He also had people fly over to the UK and other places to ask questions and compile this enormous file on Robert Maxwell. Now, I have a suspicion that the reason he never moved on the information he obtained is because Robert Maxwell was also blackmailing him. He may have blackmailed him with the same information that the CIA had, and what the CIA had was gotten through the mob, through Meyer Lansky's people. They were able to get these compromising photos of Hoover having sex not only with his top man, Clyde Tolson, but also with these kids. And so it seems like that Maxwell had access to the same information, or he had his own, and that's really why Hoover didn't do anything. Okay, so I'm going to suggest that you guys read this book because there's a lot of information in here. You know, I go into Bill Clinton, I go into Dan Lasseter, who was exactly like Jeffrey Epstein. He supplied young girls to Bill Clinton, and then these girls were discarded. I go into Prince Andrew. I go into Leslie Wexner, Max Fisher. I do deep dives throughout the book, and I've gotten really good response from everybody who's ordered it so far. So if you haven't done so, please do. I want to thank you all again for your support, for the contributions, for buying my books, and for being the nicest followers anybody could ever have. Okay, we'll do this again. Bye. Thanks.